Hi, I'm Charles Barron, and welcome to FBN's One Incredible Mission, where we bring to you some of the greatest stories, thinkers, leaders, innovators, and farmers from around the world of agriculture. Today, we are excited and honored to be joined by Jeff Broin, founder and CEO of POET Ethanol, one of the world's largest producers of biofuels. Jeff himself grew up on a farm and has since built POET over the last 3 decades into a company that produces over 2 billion gallons of ethanol every year, consuming hundreds of millions of bushels of corn and producing not just fuels, but other byproducts like dry distillers grain and industrial products, and even things like hand sanitizer, which have become large markets in the world of COVID. Today, we're going to talk about sustainability, what it means for the farm and what it means for the future of ethanol and the markets that it can create for producers and how producers can start positioning their farm to best take advantage of these future markets to get capture the most rewards and potential direct payments for sustainable practices that you're using today on the farm. So thank you and welcome to Jeff Broin.
Glad to be here, Charles.
So Jeff, I think, first thing that is really something that is, when we talk about sustainability at scale, it is kind of difficult for folks to get their minds around is talk about the scale of ethanol in American agriculture right now. And in terms of the acres, the sheer volume of acres and bushels that the industry now touches, and then what potential that is going to bring when it comes to sustainability.
When I entered this industry, ethanol was a fairly small player in the grain markets, but today we've grown to use about 40% of the U.S. corn crop, so around 5 billion bushels a year actually go to ethanol production. Exports are about 2 billion bushel a year, so we're 2.5 times bigger than exports today. And just a move to higher blends, say from E10 to E15, could make a tremendous impact on the amount of corn we export using that corn right here at home. So, I think biofuels and ethanol have such a tremendous opportunity to help the American farmer to have larger markets for their commodities.
Yeah, and so the point of the conversation today, and with our initiatives around Gradable between FBN and POET, has been all about driving producer sustainability and helping producers get the rewards for the sustainable practices that they are taking on their farm. So first, why should producers pay attention to sustainability and what's happening in the ethanol market specifically?
I think first of all, when we look at sustainability, it's the right thing to do, right? Is to do things as sustainably as you can, whether it's the way you live and recycle at your home, whether it's the way you farm, whether it's anything we're doing, the way we're driving our cars. We should all be doing the best we can for the planet to leave a good planet for future generations. So that's number one. But number two, we're seeing a big movement towards sustainability by customers out there, people that are buying ethanol and products made from grain. They're wanting more sustainable products on the shelf when we get to that end user. And so we're seeing a big increase in demand for sustainability, and that even includes fuel. So we're seeing states like California with their low carbon fuel standard saying, look, we're willing to pay a premium for more sustainable fuels, and that can go all the way back to the farm. Where if the farmer farms more sustainably, we're willing to pay more for that biofuel, and therefore perhaps we can in the future through Gradable take that premium and take it all the way back to the farm. So there could be a financial incentive here coming as well, which is the goal of Gradable, is to take that market for clean fuels and higher priced fuels because they're cleaner, and take that value back to the farmer that provides that corn to the ethanol plant.
Can you tell us a little bit about Gradable and how it's working with POET and what you see for the future?
Gradable is a pretty exciting program. Obviously we've already run a pilot. We've already done a lot of bushels through that pilot, and what we're able to do is take a look at how the farmer is farming. Take a list of different sustainable practices, and then those actually each have a value that lowers the carbon intensity of that corn coming into the plant, and then that lowers the carbon intensity of the ethanol that's going to the end market and allows us to get a slightly higher value for it. So that's pretty cool that we can go all the way back to the farm and show carbon intensity, and then take that to the end user and show them it's a cleaner product than they were buying last week and get a value for it.
Yeah, it's really great. And so far in the pilot that we've been running around the Chancellor facility, there's been a kind of oversubscription of producer interest. So there's one of the fastest trends also on the production side of agriculture has been the adoption of practices like no-till, strip-till, other conservation tillage practices. Producers are, of course, trying to minimize nitrogen use for their own economics. But those conservation tillage practices have emerged for a variety of agronomic and input efficiency benefits. And now with verification, then open up you open up more value that a producer can capture from doing it, and really get rewarded for the first time for the practices that they're using on their farm, and what makes their farm unique, and what makes their farm unique from an environmental and sustainability standpoint, not just the grain or other grain attributes that they're growing.
A lot of the sustainability practices that are out there actually are profitable. So my father, as an example, does strip till now up in southeast Minnesota. He does that because it's more efficient. It takes less fuel, right? He's passing the field less times. There's also some soil quality issues that are positive for him. He believes he's getting great yields, and so he's actually saving money doing it. And then again, if we can get these states to approve these plans, which we hope will happen, Gradable could bring up an additional profit back to that, not just an efficiency, but an additional profit. If that farmer can deliver to an ethanol plant that then can sell that ethanol to California, there may be an additional incentive for them to do it, which is pretty exciting for the farmer.
Yeah. And for producers, they have to make practice decisions can last years or decades. In fact, effectively, if they're switching row spacing or they're switching a tillage practice, those agronomic practices take time to implement, but they can start realizing benefits, and hopefully start realizing benefits if we can create these markets for them much sooner, which of course aids folks in making that switch, and helps take a little bit of the risk off the table if someone's evaluating, should I switch to no-till or not, understanding all the potential benefits that are going to be out there, aside from the agronomic and resource efficiency benefits on the farm, but then actually there being new markets for them based on those practices. So as producers look at the next decade of grain and what they need to do to get situated for the future, incorporating sustainable practices and starting to understand what all the benefits can be is really going to be essential.
Absolutely. I said earlier, I'll say it again. First of all, it's the right thing to do. Right. Second of all, hopefully there's profit in almost all these practices, if not all of them. And third of all, there could be a premium coming in the future if these states approve these plans, and we believe they will. There could be a premium coming as well. So there are a lot of reasons to be looking at making your farm more sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a lot of producers, probably don't consider what's going on in California and see that as how that relates to their local grain markets or selling into a local facility, an ethanol facility. So let's talk about that. I mean, the scale of what California is doing is really stunning. So California is the largest ethanol market in the United States. I believe consuming over 1.6 billion gallons a year. Talk about that in terms of bushels and what that means, and the growth of that market means for producers on the ground.
If you look at a state like California, if they were to move, say today they're using 500 million bushels of corn a year, over 500 million bushels of corn a year in their cars. If they were to move from E10 to E15, that's 250 million bushels of corn a year. That's a step change for agriculture. That changes the price of corn worldwide. Now, if other states follow California, Oregon's looking at a low carbon fuel standard. Washington State's looking at a low carbon fuel standard. Minnesota's looked at a low carbon fuel standard. If they follow suit with California, there's a possibility that could create, hundreds and hundreds of millions, maybe eventually billions of bushels of demand. A move nationwide from E10 to E15 is 2 billion bushels a year. That's equivalent to exports. So this country, under an E15 nationwide scenario, wouldn't have to export any corn or very little corn. We could use it right here at home. It's a market that can't be taken away through trade disputes. That corn goes right to the local ethanol plant and gets shipped to all the states that have low carbon fuel standards. And the farmer has a local market rather than having to export this to countries that can literally shut off the spigot anytime they want.
Right. So, and then the fact of that is then, with what POET and FBN are doing together through Gradable is helping producers score the carbon intensity of their production, and then being able to potentially get value and realize value through the market for the practices they're doing on their farm today, whether they've been doing those practices for a few years or if they've been doing them for decades. Producers can potentially get rewarded for their sustainable practices. It's different than an offset market or different from a sequestration proposal, because it allows grain buyers and end users like POET to directly realize the benefit and develop markets for those sustainable attributes and potentially reward producers. And that's why these standards are so important. And what we've seen already, so far in the pilot is a potential to reduce the carbon intensity of the feedstock by as much as 20% or more. And some producers can go even further than that, which really has tremendous impacts down the chain. And so, when we think about like a low carbon fuel standard, opening up those markets and developing further markets for ethanol really come down to, can we, sustainably and consistently show producers how to reduce the intensity of their emissions and their practices of the feedstock. And that's going to be the key to unlocking more growth in new markets.
Absolutely. What we find when we look at agricultural practices out there is there really are farmers are all over the board. Some are very high in carbon intensity and some are very low. So in this scenario, for the farmer who's already very low in carbon intensity, they potentially can get a reward. If we obviously have to get this approved in California, we're working hard on that, and then get others to follow. That farmer can get a reward for what he's already doing. For the farmer who's not today perhaps doing as low carbon of farming, now they can implement new practices and get a reward for it. So I think it's a really unique scenario to drive all of agriculture to a cleaner, more sustainable future. And quite frankly, that's what customers out there are going to demand. Customers like California, Washington, Oregon, customers that are using hand sanitizer. We're producing that now at POET, and they're wanting to see the sustainability side of this of the corn that's coming into the plants. So we're going to see, I think, more and more sustainability demands by end users as we move into the coming years and decades.
And ethanol, facilities don't just produce fuel, of course, but they produce many other products. And again, if that feedstock, that corn feedstock, then can flow through all kinds of other markets, not just fuels, but then also into feedstuffs, industrial products as well. Can you talk about what you're hearing or seeing in those markets as well, Jeff?
Well, POET produces, many other products. We're producing, about 600 million pounds of corn oil every year. Some of that's going to biodiesel. Now, in the future, more will be going to renewable diesel. It goes to other products, sometimes into feed products. There are many uses for that corn oil. In addition, we're producing a product that goes into asphalt that makes asphalt more pliable. That's growing pretty quickly. That comes out of the corn as well. We're also just entered the hand sanitizer market today, and we're also the fastest growing CO2 company. POET's the fastest growing CO2 company in America right now in liquid carbon dioxide that goes into all types of uses, which is flash freezing of meats and frozen foods. It goes on welding gas, it goes into fire retardants, all types of things. It also goes into pop carbonation, beer carbonation. So all of those markets also are going to demand cleaner and cleaner products over time, is what we're starting to see. So I think the farmer has a lot of incentive to start looking at how do I make my farm more sustainable so I can take advantage of these markets as they continue to come in the future.
Right, and it's across the board, whether it's in fuels, consumer products, just the increasing consumer demands, for more sustainability and more verification, more knowledge about where their food and where their products are coming from and the impacts those are having. So Jeff, tell us a bit about how you see the potential of carbon in agriculture. Because the scale and numbers can be quite stunning when you talk about the hundreds of millions of acres involved in row crop production and other agricultural production in the U.S. and billions of acres around the world.
Well, actually, some people are saying agriculture is a problem and that agriculture is causing climate change when nothing could be further from the truth. Actually, agriculture is one of the only near-term solutions to climate change that can have a significant impact. Today, U.S. agricultural land stores 100 times more carbon than the U.S. produces every year. I mean, that's a fact we need to put on billboards. We need to be telling our legislators, they need to understand agriculture is storing carbon. And it's one of the only ways you're going to get rid of this carbon that's coming from petroleum that's causing all the problems. And actually switching away from petroleum and back to agriculture is what our country and our world has to do to really stop and reverse climate change. There's simply no other way.
What other, Jeff, what other ways is POET working with farmers on sustainability? I know, there's, and the number of farmers that you work with is really, pretty stunning. I think you have, over 30,000 farmers who, supply your facilities and 28 facilities around the country. What other things are you seeing in the market and is POET doing?
At POET, we produce a magazine, and through that magazine, we're always trying to educate the farmers that deliver to us on sustainability. So we've not only done some of our own internal research on soil quality and cover crops and things that we've disseminated there, but we've also tried to educate by showing farmers that we know well, that are delivering to our plants, that are doing a lot of sustainable practices. So we try to kind of lead by example and showcase these farmers that have really done a nice job of sustainability. They talk a little about the profitability of it, talk about how it's been successful, and really try to have farmers educate farmers through our magazines and our communications.
That's really a great first step. And so we need our members' support in making these initiatives successful and developing these markets. And so if you haven't checked out the Gradable program and understand the future of these low carbon fuel standards, please go to gradable.com. We have a white paper that we've released on the pilot that we've been doing with POET at the Chancellor facility, the carbon impacts that's had. And stay tuned for more updates and news from FBN and POET on this. There's going to be hopefully a range of exciting announcements and new opportunities for folks in the future. So Jeff, thanks so much for your work together, and thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you, Charles. Great talking with you.